So there's some fun serger techniques I've been dying to show you. And I think I finally found a project that you can incorporate a couple of them with. I want to talk about Serger Crochet. I want to talk about doing an ombre effect. Ooh. And of course we're going to talk a little bit about gathering up. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Join me because I think I might have a fun little project that you might want to play with. We have a giveaway for today's video. It's a great pack of embroidery thread. And as you'll soon see, that works great in the serger. So every time you like, share, or comment, you're entered for a chance to win. Yes, I have been wanting to show you Serger Crochet and how to do an ombre effect in a baby lock serger for a while. And I kind of came up with a project that you might be interested, maybe not. It's always fun to have a project that you can play with when you're learning a new technique. So I made some fantasy little trees, some fantasy flowers. We'll show you all about how I did those. But first, let's talk about doing something really fun in the serger, which is creating that, I call it an ombre technique effect. It's shading either from light to dark or from one color to the other. Now, you may not have threads that beautifully shade like that, but there's a cool technique that you can use because a baby lock serger, a self-threading one, has a great feature that means that we can put multiple threads into the threading port. So here's the serger. I have put in each looper, the upper looper and the lower looper, I have put 3 embroidery threads in each one. Now, what does that mean? That means that I can change those threads one at a time and create a great shaded effect. Now, I have some variegated thread in here right now. Let me show you how I did some tucks. Now, where you can use this cape that I did, this is using a cover stitch. And we're going to be playing a little bit on that cover stitch machine in a little bit. But I wanted to show you if you have an overlock machine, can you do this kind of technique? And yes, you can. So I did some tucks. These are just a practice, and I really encourage you to do a practice. So here's my practice. These are just tucks. It's a 3-thread wide stitch. I did a practice, I wrote down my settings, and I want to show you how that works before we start to do, I show you how the shading works. So 3 threads in the upper looper, 3 threads in the bottom looper. Let's see how this stitches. So I just have a piece of practice fabric right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do along the edge, I'm going to create like a tuck. Now I'm using a 3-thread wide. It doesn't have to be that wide. What could I use this on? Well, I could put it on the bottom of a t-shirt, on the bottom of a skirt, on a sleeve. It's really, really cool. Here I did it on a cape, and you can get a really neat effect. So what I did is I have it set up. Now, I did practice, and my practice, sometimes the practice works and sometimes it doesn't. So that's why you do that, right? So with 3 threads coming in on the Baby Lock Celebrate, it is a machine that has some tension dials. And the tension dials are right here. These are the 2 for the loopers. Now, you're going to have a little bit thicker of a thread in there because you're using those 3 embroidery threads. So I loosened up the tension a little bit because this thread's a little bit thicker. So how does it stitch? Well, I turned down the blade because I don't want to cut. I'm just going to sew along this edge right here. I'm going to lift up my presser foot, put it in there, and I'm going to, by eye, put that fold right to the edge, maybe where the blade would be cutting. Pretty neat, right? So that created a tuck, and I could press that down. Now, if I wanted it closer, I could absolutely do that. I would just shorten my stitch length, and I could get these much, much closer. But let me tell you how you would do an ombre effect, right? So I have 3 threads in the upper looper and 3 threads in the lower looper. Now I have a handout that's going to tell you about this technique. In fact, the Serger Crochet and all the gathering techniques that we have also in the video. But let me show you basically how it would work. Let's pretend we're changing from green thread to orange thread, right? So here's my upper looper, here's my lower looper. Let's pretend these are my threads that are threaded into the machine. So I have 3 in the lower looper, 3 in the upper looper. If I want to graduate and change as I go down, what I would do is I would take away one of the greens, replace it with an orange after I do that first pass. This is my second pass. Next one, take away one of these, put in an orange. I think you know where I'm going with this. Next time, I take away a green and put in an orange, take away a green, put in an orange, take away a green, put in an orange, take away a green, put in an orange. Before you know it, I've gone from green to orange. Pretty slick, right? And it shades it beautifully. So with only 2 colors, 2 different threads, look at the effect that you can get. It's pretty fantastic, right? And that's because the Baby Lock Serger tolerates having those multiple threads come through. So if you can thread it, if it fits into the threading port, you can absolutely have that many threads in there. Quite honestly, I've done more than 3. I've had up to 5 and 6 threads going into each of those threading ports. So pretty fun, and I hope you can see the possibilities. I can go from light to dark, orange to green, all kinds of different changes, and I don't have to have the threads that do that. I could just, by changing one thread at a time, I can take care of that. So now let's talk about doing Serger Crochet. Now, Serger Crochet is not something I'm necessarily going to be doing on the Baby Lock Celebrate. I can, and let me show you what that looks like. If I do Serger Crochet on the Baby Lock Celebrate, it's going to give me kind of an organic kind of look. It's going to give me kind of loops, and I kind of like that for this little flower that I made for my hat. Why does it do that? Well, it has tension dials, and tension dials kind of rely on the machine being able to stitch through some sort of fabric. When we do Serger Crochet, we're just stitching in the air. The whole process of that is doing, let me show you some I've done, is you do the first row, and then after that you stitch each individual row after that, and you're just hooking on to that previous row, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But out here, you're stitching in the air, my friends. So on the Baby Lock Celebrate, it does it, but it's not quite as pretty as another machine, which is a Baby Lock that has an automatic thread delivery system. This one has tension dials. All the other Baby Lock machines after this in the lineup, the more machines, if you will, they have a thread delivery system. And we're going to talk about that when we get over there. So that's where I'm going to do my Serger Crochet, is on that machine. This one, does it work? Absolutely. Once again, experiment, see how it's going to look when you get it done. But check the handout. I give you some settings and recommendations there. I really like Serger Crochet on the machine that has automatic thread delivery. Why am I telling you this? Well, I think it's my duty to let you know that there's other machines that do other things, other tech for sewing, and that's what I wanted to share with you. So Baby Lock Celebrate, great machine. But there's other machines that do other things, and so we'll explore that in a little bit. But while we're here, let's talk about one of the features that's really great on the Celebrate, and what we're going to do is we're going to rethread it and do some gathering. Sergers do an excellent job gathering up fabric because they have what's called a differential feed. And what the differential feed does, the Serger has 2 sets of feed dogs, one in the front, one in the back, and they move to pull the fabric, right? Well, when I set the differential feed to higher, meaning I want it to gather, the feed dogs in the front move faster than the ones in the back. That means it's going to really effectively gather. And there's some ways we can do that to get even more gathers. So let's rethread and let me show you what those are. We'll set this machine up for gathering. So I'm going to take my threads out. Remember, I've been set up for doing that cool tuck. I have my 3 embroidery threads in there. I'm going to just use Serger thread for this gathering technique. I've done my Serger Crochet strip. I'm going to want to gather it so when I use it in either a flower or on my little trees, that it's all gathered up and it gives me that great effect. So let's switch over and let me show you how easy that is to do. So I'm going to take the threads out. I don't need to take the needle thread out because that's just going to be a regular thread anyway. But I'm going to rethread the loopers. So let me lift up the presser foot. We'll take these threads out. Now while I'm doing this, let me tell you that you don't have 6 spots on the top of the machine to put thread. So what I do is I just set my thread spools on the back of the machine. If there's a thread spool I can use, great. If there's not, I can put the threads on the back of the machine. Serger's all about the flow of thread. So you want to make sure that your machine is able to have the thread flow to it and the thread and not get caught up. So I've taken those threads out. What we're going to do is we're going to rethread with just regular serger thread. Now this is just regular serger thread. Just about any thread kind of works on a serger, quite honestly. Serger thread is just a larger quantity, and quite honestly it's quite not as super high quality as a regular sewing thread would be, because it doesn't really have to be. I'm not disrespecting the serger thread, it's just not made to as high a standards as you would have for a regular all-purpose or a quilting thread. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread the serger. I'm going to push this button. Let me open this so that you can see everything. And as I turn the flywheel on the side, everything clicks into place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread and tell it I'm threading the upper looper. Just going to put the thread in the port, and voila, upper looper has been threaded. I'm going to pull that on through. Now let's thread the lower looper. Here's my thread. I'm going to bring it up. It's already in threading position. Click it in there. Tell it I'm threading the lower looper. Stick my thread in the little threading port. Whoops, stick my thread in the little threading port. Hardest part is sticking the thread in the little threading port, believe it or not. There we go. Voila! Once you get it in there, it's easy peasy. I'm going to let the serger have just a little bit of about that much thread in the bottom, and tell the machine I'm going to be sewing, and close it up. It's ready to serge, almost. I want you to remember that I changed my tension settings on the Baby Lock Celebrate when I did those thicker threads, right? So when I'm doing any normal kind of serging, if I look up here, I have a little box around the number 4. That's right in the middle of the tension. Now, even though you do set the tensions on this machine, there's not that much adjustment. So I have it set for normal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to raise up my blade by turning that knob, and then the cutting blade will rise up. I want to make sure I have the longest stitch length possible because I'm going to be doing a gathering. And most importantly, I'm going to tell those forward feed dogs to move faster than the back feed dogs by taking my differential feed and putting the lever all the way up to the top. And I can tell that's going to gather because I have a little picture here that shows the fabric coming in. Now I should be ready to gather. Now there's other ways to gather fabric, I'm sure you know. I don't know if you've ever had that where you're trying to gather a bunch of fabric, you're sewing it on the sewing machine, and you're going to pull that thread. Well, we can do that on the Baby Lock Celebrate Serger also, but the machine's automatically going to gather it up when I sew. So here's my Serger crochet strip. I'm going to gather this up here, put it under the foot, and I'm just going to ride along the side over here because I want a little bit of a side on there. And let's gather. Can you see it's automatically doing that? And that's pretty sweet, right? Well, now, what I need is those feed dogs to work really effectively against this fabric. So there's a trick that you can do to help you get a little bit more gathers. And that's by taking your hand on your left hand, sorry left handies, but that's what the hand you're going to use. Hold it back into here. And what I want to do is I want to hold that fabric just a little bit longer under the foot. So I'm going to hold my hand back here and kind of keep the fabric from flowing out from behind the foot. What that does is that forces that fabric under that presser foot just a little bit longer and in contact with those feed dogs in the front. So I get a little bit more gather. And that works pretty good. What if I want to control the amount of gathers that I have? Well, that's kind of challenging to do. I can change the differential feed, but for different fabrics, then you get kind of different results. A thinner fabric is going to gather more than a thicker fabric. A very thick fabric hardly gathers at all. So what I could do is I could take and add that extra needle. I'm in the left needle position now. I can add the needle on the right hand side and switch this machine over to a 4-thread overlock. That gives me another thread going right down the middle of my stitch. Now that thread I can take and I can pull it just like I would be able to pull that sewing thread if I was just doing top and a bottom thread on the sewing machine and pulling that to get my gathers. I'm already going to have it pretty gathered, but that's going to give me that extra little something to really control my gathers. Say I want more in one spot, less in another spot. I can totally do that by pulling that thread, and I can make it fit a certain size. So that's another cool little trick. Now, for the Baby Luxe Sergers, there are a bunch of accessory feet that you can get. And the one thing that you have to keep in mind, this is a Baby Luxe Celebrate. It's a 4-thread serger. Baby Luxe has 2 other 4-thread sergers that are self-threading. All of those specialty feet fit within that line of machines. We're going to go over to the Baby Luxe Triumph in a little bit because that's the machine that I have an accessory. I have all the feet for that machine. So I don't have them for the Celebrate. I do have them for the Triumph. So we're going to go over and I like to show you there's a couple extra accessory feet that really work well to really help you gather. How well do they work? Well, you can gather something and sew it to a flat piece at the absolute same time. They have a little, I can tell you all about it, but it's better to see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to head on over to the Baby Luxe Triumph. I want to show you those specialty feet, and we're going to get into the Serger Crochet. And I'd like to tell you the difference between having a serger with tension dials and a serger that doesn't use them and uses that automatic thread delivery system. Both great sergers, just depends on what you're going to want to do with it. So we're going to head over to the Triumph and I'm going to show you how I do the Serger Crochet and a couple more feet. I'll see you over at the Triumph. So here we are at the Triumph. So everything old is new again. Let's do a little bit of Serger Crochet, which isn't really crochet. If you have a piece of crochet, probably no machine, I don't know of any machine that can do that. But let's do something that kind of mimics that. And what I did is I made some strips and I used that to create some fantasy flowers and some fun little trees. Now it may not be your cup of tea. It's a fun way to practice if you want to. So I went ahead and threaded up the serger. You can use some heavier threads for this if you want to. I've actually used actual real crochet cotton in the upper looper. Pretty adventurous, I think. So it's all set up. The one thing I did do is I put on a fun foot for the Triumph. I put on the lace applicator foot because it has a guide. What I want to do is stitch right along the edge of this piece of fabric. I'm using a 1-inch strip of fabric and I'm just going to stitch on that, and the next time I go around I'm going to stitch right on the edge of that. Let's see if you can see that. Oh, and you could also use a clear foot if you need to see right on in there. So I'm using that 3-thread wide stitch, and this foot is helping me guide that edge, so I'm just catching the edge of the fabric. So I pull it around so that you can see, and you can see I just grabbed the edge of that fabric. Now the next time I come around, this edge here is the edge I'm going to put, and I'm going to stitch right into that. The trick is to see if I can stitch right on into there. I'm going to use the same foot. And I'm just going to take the one piece and go all around it. That's quite frankly how I made my little things. I made one strip and I just kept going around and around. Can you see how what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build on that previous row of stitching, and I'm going to put a row of loops as I go out. Now I'm going to be stitching in the air. Now this is why I wanted to come to the Triumph. I wanted to show you that this machine does not use a tensioning system. I get consistent size loops because it doesn't use tension. It literally measures the amount of thread that it delivers to the needle to make a stitch. That's one of the big differences between a serger with an automatic thread delivery system and the Celebrate. Both great sergers, but this system is a little bit more foolproof when it comes to creating a stitch. There's no tensions to adjust because you basically don't have to. So I'm going to go around one more time. You'd probably be using a longer piece of fabric. And then there is my piece of Serger Crochet. Could use it as a trim. What I did is I super gathered this edge right here and I made ruffles that went around a tree. Actually, I made a fantasy flower, and here's my flower. And what I did is I super gathered right along in here. I just did it in a spiral on the end of a piece of floral wire, wrapped it on with some floral tape, made my own artificial flower, and I think it looks pretty cool. I think it works. What I also made is I took an empty serger cone and wrapped my Serger Crochet around it, and I made a fun little tree. Might be a nice little holiday decoration. Might be kind of fun. So, how did I super gather? Well, there's a couple ways that you can gather above and beyond the gathering that we did over there on the Celebrate. Certainly do it the same way here. Let me show you a couple feet before I let you go off into the world of fun crochet. So here are a couple fun feet that you can explore. Remember, I have these feet for my Triumph. They're also available for the Celebrate and all the Baby Lock self-threading sergers. So here's a fun thing. So this is, believe it or not, the elastic foot. And why I'm showing it to you is it has an opening here and here, and I literally take dental floss, put it through those two little holes, and when I serge, notice I didn't even gather, but the dental floss is stitched over, and I can absolutely, totally custom gather everything, and I can get I can get a super gather if I want to. Great for making those fantasy flowers. There's another foot, and it's the Ruffling Foot. What it does is it has, remember I talked about gathering, is we want those fabrics to have contact with that front set of feed dogs. Well, this has a little tongue in the front, and what that does is it presses that fabric really close to the feed dog so that you can get the maximum action. What's another fun feature of this is you can sew a flat piece to a gathered piece in one pass. You simply put the flat piece in that hole on the top as you're serging. One pass, gathered to flat. I think there's lots of options. So don't forget, fun techniques. You can do that ombre technique. Why couldn't you do that on your Serger Crochet? Change the colors as you go through. Works great. Serger Crochet? Yeah, it's fun. Practice it. It's a fun way to make a trim, and you may not put it on your collar, but there might be something you can do with it. And gathering. Oh my gosh, there's no garment, there's no home decor that gathering doesn't add a little bit of extra something. Thank you for watching me today. I wanted to show you the difference between the Celebrate and a machine with automatic thread delivery. There's a big difference. If you're good with the Celebrate, great machine. If you want a little bit more, you can go a little bit more. I'm going to shoot it off to George. Great buying on either machine and all the ones in the middle. Thank you for watching me today. Go get your handout. make some fantasy stuff.
Thanks, Kathy. Once again, that was an incredible presentation. Don't forget to click on the link and download the notes for Sewing Tech Talk with Kathy. Now, Baby Lock invented the serger back in 1967, and throughout the years they've had many innovations that have separated them from all others. The Baby Lock Celebrate is one of their most popular models. It has their original jet air threading that threads both loopers with a burst of air. It also has a needle threader that's very easy to work with. It can sew on all kinds of fabric because of the differential feed. You can even gather with it. You can instantly turn a knob and do a rolled edge, which is beautiful for napkins. It also works with a wide variety of thread. Right now, this machine is on sale. It has a regular retail price of $2,499, but we have it on sale for $1,199. But wait, we're offering a bonus for a limited time. Right now, when you purchase the Baby Lock Celebrate, you get 24 spools of Madeira Aero Lock thread, plus a membership to Love of Knowledge. This is where you can get online training in all kinds of techniques on this serger, our sergers in general. If you have any questions on this or other Baby Lock models, give us a call at 1-800-865-9664 or click on the link to order your Baby Lock Celebrate today. Bye for now.